So every single Saturday I go over writing tips, and today we're going to be going over info dumps. One thing I've noticed with a lot of new writers out there and a lot of indie writers is they're horrible for info dumps. When they're creating worlds, they just dump all this unnecessary information that is not relevant to the story, and it kind of makes it hard to continue reading and enjoy the actual author's story and what they're trying to convey. So today I'm going to be going over how to avoid having a lot of info dumps in your story. Because if you have an info dump in your story, a lot of people will DNF it, which means do not finish. And some people, they won't even give you a second shot. Like as soon as they come across one info dump, it's okay, book gone. So we're going to be going over that today and learning how to avoid it. So my first suggestion is break it down and just provide what is necessary. So just go over what you have written down and think, is this necessary to the actual story? Because you don't need to go over what color the sky is. You don't really need to go over what sandals the person is wearing. You don't need to go over the picture on somebody's shirt. Just go over what is necessary with the story. So if you think of Harry Potter and the history of the Hogwarts school, they only go over what is necessary. They don't go over the entire history from beginning to end. There's information you can find regarding the entire story of Hogwarts, but the book itself doesn't actually go into that. Then after this, you want to start dropping breadcrumbs. And what I mean by that is gradually introducing your story through like your character's thoughts, feelings, stuff like that. You can do it creatively throughout the book, the writing process. You can do some a blast from the past, where you go back in your book's history and start telling the history through a character that lived in that point in time in the history. There's many ways you can actually do tell your character the history without actually making it a lecture from you to your reader. Action scenes are another great way to tell the character's backstory or the world's history or its layout. Like let's say if you have a chase scene, you can use that scene to give the reader an actual layout of your story. Or if your character is walking through a museum, you can have your character look at some of the museum's pieces and actually use that as an instance to try and give the reader a sense of of your world's history as well. And again, in this way, you're giving the reader the information naturally and organically, and it's not coming off as a lecture. Because, I mean, nobody actually likes sitting through a lecture. Lectures are very informative, but lectures are intentional info dumps. But people go into a lecture knowing what they're expecting. When you read a fictional book, you're not or a novel, like a horror story or a fantasy story or a sci-fi story, you're not going into it wanting a lecture. So those the people that are buying your book, they're buying it for enjoyment, not lecture. They want the information naturally and organically, and this is action scenes are a great way to give them those the necessary information naturally and organically. And if you have a certain aspect of the story that needs to be told about your world's history, consider a prologue or even an epilogue, because that can give the reader a focus on that part of the history without actually ruining your story's flow. But I would only do it if your book needs a prologue or an epilogue, because some readers don't like prologues and epilogues and will skip them altogether. Also use multiple perspectives, because when you use multiple perspectives of different characters throughout your story, you can give the information from different sets of views and keep the story dynamic. This will keep the reader's attention and engagement, and it won't come off across as a lecture because all the information isn't coming from one character. So the final note that I actually put on this is relaying your information through a dialogue rather than through the narrative. If you do this, it gives it a personal touch, and it can actually have the reader trying to actually rooting for your character. The only thing I would actually suggest when it comes to a dialogue is not to have a dialogue that's too lengthy, because if you have a dialogue that's too lengthy, it actually comes across as information overload and can actually work against you. So when going through a dialogue, try and just keep it to again, you just kind of look at the dialogue and you think, is all this information relevant, yes or no? And that should prevent you in doing a dialogue that is way too lengthy. So yeah, that's about it. That's all I wanted to talk about today. So just comment on the video. Tell me what you do to prevent from doing information overload or an info dump. Hit like and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one.